Hello everyone and welcome to the Diplomacy Timing Window, where the rules are discussed and our opinions don't matter. My name is Kazadoom.
I'm the Half-Heard.
And I'm hungryhippos.
And today we will discuss a slew of updates that are all based around the change to the Sabotage Window. So now we're back to how the Sabotage card originally worked in Twilight Wars, which led to a lot of changes that could be reverted, and a lot of cards are now basically rules as written as they were intended for TI4. So most importantly, now if you play an action card, a Sabotage window opens. If nobody plays Sabotage, the card immediately resolves. Before that, you had to wait until the whole phase was over, and at the end of the phase, all the action cards resolved, which led to a few awkward situations. Can you remember a few that you ran across in your games?
Yeah, some good examples I think would be like in system activation, you had for a good one is how Rally and Neuroglaive interact. So even if you played Rally first, you would still have to resolve Neuroglaive because that's an immediate effect, but the Rally would stay open for the entire window because you would potentially be able to play someone would be able to sabotage it. And so what that meant is normally you would get if you play Rally first, you get 2 fleet tokens, and then Neuroglaive would happen and you lose 1. So you'd still come out with a net of 1. But the way it was working previously was Neuroglaive would happen first. Even if Rally was played first, you'd have to lose that token, do a fleet check, you would have to adjust for it, so lose ships potentially, and then at the end of the system activation window you'd get your 2 tokens back. that was a pretty noticeable one, right? And there's lots like that, you know, with for example, the sustained damage timing windows with shields holding and sustaining damage, you could or direct hits, you could hold on to that sabotage and wait to see what everything they're doing and then play it like near the end on a card that was played earlier. So, you know, it had some effects like that. But now, like you mentioned, Kaza, is it's all been reworked so that when an action card is played, it immediately opens a sabotage window. If the card is not sabotaged, the card or ability resolves, and you move on. There's no retroactiveness to it. I think it's similar with the sustain window. I think once a ship sustains, you have that moment to direct hit it. I'm actually not sure if that's the case.
Yep, you have that moment to direct hit it. If you don't do it, it's over. You can't go back.
You can't retroactively on a next sustain. You can't retroactively direct hit, I guess, a previous ship that sustained damage.
Yeah. So I think in the end, I mean, the fear was that it would lead to more timing windows and longer games.
I think what I've noticed is it's about overall over a whole game, it's about the same. That's what I would say, because I think in things like combat, it's significantly less timing windows, because if you remember before, if you sustain damage
after direct hit, you had to go through all the windows again,
or after a shield's holding, right, it would just keep going around the table, whereas that doesn't happen anymore. It'll go around the table once and that's it. Where it was quicker before was agenda, because it would go around the table at the same time that it would ask you to play an ability or a rider. And now you go around once for the sabotage and again for the rider. So agenda has become longer. So that's why I say overall, I think some got longer, some got shorter. Overall, no impact.
Yeah. But most importantly, I think this also led to the ability to really revert a lot of TI War specific rules changes. For instance, Minister of Peace and Nullfield basically ended the phase completely and nothing resolved. And now
even if you had played a card.
Now they just end the turn and resolve. Everything is resolved before that. It is already resolved and is not affected at all.
Yeah. Most notably would be the ambush and dimensional splicer abilities of Mentak and Ghosts, respectively, now are back to their rules as written.
That's unfortunate. I like the dimensional splicer that the ghosts have under the app.
It was an interesting twist. I did enjoy it.
It was.
While it lasted.
But it is so nice to finally be able to snipe those War Suns flagships or carriers that want to invade you. That's so nice.
Yeah.
So with respect to what's left within the app that's still not rules as written, but has been optimized so that timing windows, our glorious, glorious timing windows, aren't over inundated. Off the top of my head, I can think of the trade agreement.
That's a big one.
Yeah, because for anyone that was part of the TI Wars app prior to the timing window efficiency or optimization that was put into place, anytime someone played trade and anytime that the trade agreement had been traded amongst the table, or
Not
the
just
app,
a trade agreement, any promissory notes, because it's
any
secret
promissory note.
information.
That's right. Yes. Oh, the torture. The torture.
Around the
Situation
table you
where
go.
You had like
36
Yeah.
windows for one trade
30
strategy card.
Yeah. So now
trade is already one of the worst cards in terms of time you need to resolve it because you have to negotiate.
All the negotiations.
So right
But
now,
this makes it even worse.
with the app, the trade agreement is played automatically.
That's
But
right.
with the options of being able to, I guess, with the other component action cards, being able to use them whenever you want or skip using them, you could potentially have a situation where the trade agreement, you could have the options like skip playing it this time for an action, or keep it as a default and play it automatically. But someone would there'd be an option scheme somewhere if you wanted to change it from current default.
Yeah, I think with the new auto pass, that was part of this slew of updates. You know, the auto pass we have right now was they just did it specifically for sabotage and instinct training, so that new timing window we just were talking about. But you know, I assume that was like kind of testing the waters, and hopefully it's gonna kind of open the possibilities of more auto pass features to help flow. And then yeah, I would agree. I'd love to see trade agreements come back full circle to its ability to have the flexibility on when to play it, because there's definitely times where you want to hold them, and having that as a feature where you can select the option beforehand whether you're going to play it or not to keep the flow going.
Yeah, I mean, like if you've played politics and you know that what's the name of the agenda where everyone either loses
economic
equality gets played, and you definitely don't want a trade agreement played that round after knowing that.
Yeah, exactly.
So do we have any other potential options or suggestions going forward, or are we happy so far? Or it could be both, I suppose.
Yeah.
I guess the auto pass was an amazing feature. It really helps a lot to speed up the game.
Yeah, I guess. And before we go into maybe some of our discussion on auto pass, the other component I wanted to just mention was that the Souls promissory note is probably the other notable exception to the rules as written, but one that I think should stay as is, and I don't think should change.
I mean, the only thing I could think of with Soul is that you can abuse it, basically selling it to every player on the table.
Yeah, I like the way it is now. I feel like it's more intuitive to play it on your turn instead of Soul's turn.
No, what I mean is like you could limit it to max once per, like going through one initiative round.
Of course, no, and I understand. I guess
that's the one thing where it's like way closer to rules as written. If you say, okay, it can only be used once.
I still would hate it because it would just be like, do you have to stop and ask everybody, you know, whether they're going to play Soul's promissory note every time it's Soul's turn if they've traded a card? It's
no, I mean it that way. You still play it as is in TI Wars in your turn, but it can only be played once, so Soul can trade it away twice, for instance. But if I have initiative 1 and I use it on my turn, initiative 2 can't use it on the same one until Soul's turn comes around again.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah, it's convoluted. It's convoluted, but it
I say leave as is.
Closer to how it works as written. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think people want to trade it 5 times with Soul, feeding Soul a lot of cash usually. So yeah.
all right. Well, I'm really happy with these series of updates because I know we're a little bit behind on these episodes, but this has led to the ability to create our last faction. And so we'll get into that next time.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll definitely do a yin breakdown next time. That was very exciting to see that last faction. And now I gotta ask you guys, have you been making use of the auto pass features? And if so, which one do you tend towards?
Right now I'm using the always auto pass on one of my games because I'm about to win, and really, why would I want to hold up that W?
You know what? That's a great time to use that. I never thought of that. Just increase the odds that it just makes it to the finish, and decreases the odds of someone quitting out of spite or something.
Yeah.
For me, it depends a bit on what activity time the game has. If it's during the day, I have an easy time responding anyway, so I don't really mind not auto passing, but usually go for pass if I don't have anything to play.
I have to admit, I've been using the feature where it passes if you have nothing to do. I like the do it for me attitude that comes with that option.
I don't trust the technology.
Play for me game.
I've been recently caught off guard by one of the things. I think it might be one of the small downsides of the TI Wars app is you have to know the rules and the phases. Mm-hmm. For example, I was invading Mechatol Rex recently, and I had to choose to assign hits from a PDS. And I had some fighter twos and a carrier, like a lot of fighter twos. So I was like, well, a carrier hits on 9. I'll just destroy the carrier and we'll get this combat going. And, the fighters don't need to be anywhere because we're starting combat. Turns out, because PDS are not officially part of space combat.
Not part of combat.
I destroyed the carrier and then was immediately over capacity. And I was like, what? No, no. And so I destroyed 7 fighter twos.
Ouch.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, I guess I was just saying that the trust in the mechanics is not fully there because I'm too stupid to know the rules.
Well, so, I mean, the good thing is a lot of the times the mechanics, like all that, kind of helps with the rules knowing. Sometimes you do learn at the end of the day, which is like so many times, right? I think a lot of the ones people always forget is like you go in with a bunch of dreads ready to bombard a planet, and it's a cultural planet with what's the agenda? Conventions of war
that nobody sees anymore.
Yeah. But you know what? I feel like that probably, at least personally for me, that happened a lot in real life as well. Right?
Yeah.
And I guess the thing is, like, if you're being super casual, you could be like, all right, take back the whole move, let's go back, right? But in a more competitive setting, I'd say it's like, well, you kind of got to be on top of that stuff. And I'd say it's almost part of the game. Though
it's really hard to see agendas in TI Wars.
It can be hard to see agendas, and also async, I think, can complicate it as well, right? Because like, how can you remember that Conventions of War passed 2 weeks ago on one of your 18 games, right?
Are you playing 18 games right now, Half-Heard?
I maybe not. No, I don't know. I actually am right at 18 games, so that's probably why the number came to my head. But the way I get around that, I found, is I use my notes, and whenever there's certain things I always keep track of now that I've learned from playing so many games, is Conventions of War is always in bold in my notes if it's active. Economic equality, I always keep track of that. That's a good one.
Yep.
And regulated conscription, that's another one you want to keep track of.
Oh, that one.
You write that in bold in your notes.
Yeah. So aside from the sabotage passes, what other pass options would you like to see?
Yeah, because I mean now the floodgates are open, right? So
Yes.
if we can auto pass sabotage, what else can we auto pass? I think we probably all agree that agenda timing windows when and after could certainly benefit from the ability to
Yes.
auto pass. If this, and I would say the same options, right? Like never pass, only pass if I have nothing
Yeah,
to
or
do.
just get notified when an agenda is revealed, and then you get the option to pass when, pass after for this agenda.
Yeah, well, and that's the I think like right now there's an option to pass until the end of someone ends a turn, and maybe for the agenda that option just changes to pass until a new agenda is, or the agenda is finished, right?
Then I mean, ground combat for me sometimes is the most frustrating thing. We always get asked for beginning of combat and then roll dice. If you could just press the button to the death,
that
to the bitter end,
I would love a to the death
option.
ground combat. Oh, that would be
even imagine with mechs, great. Even then you could automate it, even with abilities in there. You could just automatically do like sustain damage with the mech and potentially repair with uranium armor. That could all be automated. There's nothing like brainy in there. It's just annoying, especially if you miss and miss and miss and miss.
Well, I think
one scary combats.
I think the low-hanging fruit for sure is just an auto pass to pass on the specific window for start of ground combat. And, you know, maybe this isn't really an auto pass, but like an option to automatically roll when you're given the option to roll dice.
Yes. And I mean, the same goes for space combats. I mean, it's not too common that you have space combats that really go to the last ship. But if you plan to do that, you might as well just hit the okay. Go for it until everything's dead.
I think I'm going to challenge that, both of you. As much as one-on-one infantry combat is thrilling as it is, and the desire to have that continue on, you know, see, but there's a certain psychological element. There's a somewhat motivational element to being able to push the button, feel like you have a certain amount of control over the situation by, you know, pushing the button to roll, even though it doesn't, you don't need to. They could easily have set it up that it just happens.
But this is why option is key, right?
Fair.
So I agree, because there are going to be certain times, if I'm in a tournament game, the way like Doc and Cornet were in the finals of the tournament we had recently, you know, I would 100% be clicking each of those because I need to see it as it happens, right? Yeah. But there's a ton of stuff where I'm not invested. If it's a planet I don't care about, because like you said, maybe you have the game in the bag, right? And losing that planet is irrelevant.
And you really have to play that moral boost in round 17 of the ground combat, because there it makes the most sense.
Yeah. So I think the option to just similar to what we have now, which is just you're able to choose between whether you want to do those things or whether you want the game to just automatically pass them by for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Okay.
So no, I'm glad you brought it up though, because it is an important thing, and I agree. I don't want to see it gone completely. I'm more advocating for the option to choose at any time whether you want it to be automatic or not.
Or if I don't have any ability to play, it would be nice to skip that window for me, if I choose to do so. Yeah.
Like I said, I think the same options that exist now, right? There's the 4 options, which is never do it, always do it if I have nothing to physically capable to do, and the 4th one being the same as the 3rd, but then resetting to never at the end of the turn, right?
Yeah. Exactly, for everything. That would be so amazing.
Yeah, so those, I mean, I would say those are the main ones. When we talk about like space combat, I would say similarly, again, the start of space combat and after a round of space combat, you after a round of space combat, I think really is just emergency repairs.
Yep.
So it's like not, if you don't have it and you don't care that people know you don't have it, then just pass by that. And yeah, I think those are the main ones. Maybe another one could be like system activation, but maybe that one I don't use as much because maybe you want to bait certain action cards, right? Or I hopefully, talking about like other components, I hope we see something like skilled retreat come in.
You don't want to reveal that you've received the ceasefire or something.
A ceasefire, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons, but even then, still an option to do it if you're in one of those moods where you just don't care, or if you're at a game state. If it's
let's put it like that. If it's activating my system, then I always want to respond. But if it's activating a different system, for instance, the Counter-Stroke response window, where I'm like, nah, if I don't have it, might as well skip it.
So,
shall we call it here?
Oh no, I had one more I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Yes.
So those are the main ones. I guess the only other thing I would say, we talked about also automating dice rolls. I think a cool one to, I'm curious what you guys think, but I think a cool one to see would be to automate assigning hits specifically when the hits exceed the number of units that you can assign them to. And the reason I say this, and you tell me how you feel, is that, sometimes it feels like a knife in the gut if I have 4 infantry on a planet and I have to assign 7 hits to them, and I have to laboriously click through them all, see the message that I haven't assigned enough, and then still
Half-Heard, that's the least you could do for your infantry who have battled so hard to hold your planet. You could at least respect every single flag that's there. It's like, yes, you did a good job, but
you're much kinder to your failure of infantry than I am. I am not happy with them. They get no funeral and their wives get no compensation.
As Soul, I have to say they're probably used to recruit more people again using the good old Soul propaganda machine.
Yeah.
No, but in general, like assigning hits in ground combat, since there's only one situation where it could be different targets, and that's the matriarch with the fighter twos or the fighters going into ground combat.
Well, it's not just ground combat. I would advocate it for space combat as well. And again, remember the caveat is that I'm only advocating for this if the hits exceed the number of units that can be assigned hits, right?
Yeah.
So you have no choice.
Yes, but for instance, ground combat, you also don't have a choice. If it's 1 hit and you have 3 dudes, 3 infantry, you have to assign it to an infantry. So it does make a difference if you do it manually or if it's automated. Right.
Specifically for ground combat, that's true. You could, other than the matriarch for now, because obviously when mechs come, if mechs come, that would be different.
No, let's go with when.
Let's go with when. I like that too. Optimism. So I think that'd be pretty cool. And I guess stick around because we'll I think we got a few more things to cover in the coming episodes. We'll definitely do a yin. Talking about the yin update, and we've had this discussion about auto pass. I think there's other quality of life updates that maybe we can touch on, so stay tuned for that, and more tournament updates or league updates, I should say. Kaza's gonna...
just little update in the tournament channel. There's now a highlights and screen caps sub channel, so I'm trying to post a few screenshots with victory point counts every day. Like I'm now at game 36, and I'm just every day taking a few screenshots of games and just plopping them into the channel.
Nice. So maybe next time we can take a look at those.
Yep, there's definitely a few good ones in there.
Well, I think we've spent enough time stalling in this timing window, so let's hit the pass button and keep the game moving.